Hey, good morning. It's Mark, Medicine with the Meadows, Plant Medicine Path. Today I have a good friend of ours, and we met her in this path through another good friend of ours. So we have Ayahuasca Kaur this morning, and we've known each other for about a year now. I think we
Yep.
met you through I can't think of my friend now.
I think through your Facebook group.
Facebook group. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's introduce yourself. Let's go from there and tell everybody about you and what you do.
Yeah. So my name is Ayahuasca Carr. That's my spiritual name. My birth name is Sarai, and I'm a licensed therapist and I'm a coach and a breathwork facilitator. And I guess, in my heart, my truth, it's I've always been like a truth seeker. So I've done a lot of practices and I've done a lot of different things, and ayahuasca has just been one of them. Um, And yeah, so I help people prepare and integrate from these experiences that are life changing, to say the
Yeah,
least. And one of my
sure.
biggest things is harm reduction and really empowering participants to play an active role in their transformation process and really have agency over, their setting and their dosage. So I think that's what we're talking about today, which I'm really excited about.
All good things that we really need to talk about because I think the biggest thing people don't come to these medicines for is a safety factor and a fear factor. And
Mhm.
we gotta create this sense of really setting is very important. And I've learned that from the very beginning. There's a big difference between a psychedelic trip when you're 20 years old at a movie theater and a concert
Mhm.
than when you're in a set and setting of it's just so different. So let's
Right.
go ahead and talk about this today. Let's talk about how you do it, and we'll talk about setting,
Let's do
intentions,
it.
and all that good stuff.
Yeah. My favorite topic in the magical trifecta, and I think it's a good place to start, with, like, set and setting is actually always happening. This is what I've really learned, that set and setting is always occurring, it's happening right now. Like, what is my set before I came on to this talk with you? And, we've had previous talks, we've built some rapport, so that's really help the setting. Feel a little bit more comfortable hopping on here, you know?
Right.
So so it's always happening. It's always happening. Our nervous system and our history and what's happened to us in the past and what our dreams and our intentions for the future, those are all things. And so um when I'm helping someone prepare for a transformation, right? Because that's really what most people are after with ayahuasca, any psychedelic, but we're here to talk about ayahuasca. Um, they're wanting to shift something big, and
Yeah.
they got a ton of courage, and they probably got a ton of things that they want to address internally. And I think the other thing to talk about too is that I think as modern Westerners, we put so much emphasis on the plant medicine or the psychedelic, which I don't think that's anyone's fault. I think that's the way that psychedelics or plant medicines have been advertised. This You'll cure this one session, it'll be done. Um, all these things, and although that might be true for some people, I think for long-term transformation, it's a lifelong journey. I'm still on the journey.
That's why we call it the plant medicine path. It's definitely a
Right.
path that you have to go on because once you experience these transformations, all these transformations, there's a process of integrating all that. So
That's right.
integrating becomes a part of your life. And we will
That's right.
always say there's no quick fix in anything. But what these plans do is they give you the opportunity to
Right.
change. They have you
Absolutely.
there's a catalyst that happens in a few short time spans that
Mhm.
your neurons snap and you can
Yep.
fill that and infiltrate that with better stuff. Sorry, but go ahead.
No, you got it. You got it, Mark. Exactly. And like I think ayahuasca and any non-ordinary state work, which I work with EMDR, somatic experiencing, breath work, um, and ayahuasca, right? It's all on a spectrum. So no matter what non-ordinary state you're working with, these approaches give somebody what I call, or anyone would call, a direct experience of their truth, with a capital T, which is their personal, spiritual awakening, awakening to the truth that's underneath the programming, the imprints, the trauma of I'm not good enough, I'm not safe, I'm not lovable, I'm not worthy. These are things that are often from childhood, right? And
Absolutely.
so,
Mhm.
um, so that's why, it's delicate. It's really delicate at times. I work a lot with childhood trauma and just if you don't relate to that, you can just call it imprint or programming. And so these different states, they really open up things that are buried really deep down, especially with ayahuasca. And so in
Yeah,
order to do that, there has to be the right container. It's all about the container, right? How well I've prepared, what setting I'm stepping into. So whoever I'm sitting with, you know, are they trauma informed?
right.
Do they have the knowledge of how to work with the nervous system? Um, how many facilitators to participants ratio? What's going to happen when I call for help or I need something when I'm struggling? These are all things I talk about in my ayahuasca preparation course. To have those conversations way ahead of time before, you or me enter the non ordinary state. Because once I'm in ayahuasca land, my ability to speak up, my ability to um, function, it's a
Yeah,
little different. It's a little different, right?
right, right, right.
So, so like these are really and very important questions. So we want to be picky participants is basically what I teach my students is that there should never be a time where you feel pressured or you feel like this is the only opportunity. You should always feel like this is in alignment with my intention. And so that's really important. I teach my students and people, whatever, they just message me, it doesn't even matter if they're working directly with me, is that we really need to be honest with ourselves with what's actually happening with us. And that
Right.
takes some inventory, right? And so a lot of us who've come from dysfunctional patterns from our families, we've learned to not speak up, not have preferences, just take anything that feels good. And so this is kind of like what some of the education I want to get out there is like you have a choice and that's where your power is, with or without ayahuasca, by the way, no matter what type of person you're working with or whatever. So really feeling to like what exactly it is that you're looking for in your transformation. So if it is to um heal the relationship with your mother because you've seen it popping up in, other relationships around you, maybe you feel like you can't trust yourself or trust others. um we could go on and on and on about intention.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
um
And intentions, I think say this just in how I feel about intentions.
mhm,
A lot of people put a lot of thought into intentions, but at
mhm,
the end of the day, I've sat with ayahuasca enough times. At the
mhm.
end of the day, she's going to do what she's going to do and
Right.
give you what she's going to give you. So intentions are great to set. Intentions
Yes.
are like a responsibility and a respect for the
Correct.
medicine. Your ego searching for something different than where your trauma is wanting to fill. Wins them, we don't know. It just does.
Right.
And
Right.
purgatories of these medicines is part of what we. A lot of people are afraid of these medicines because of the purging part. But when you're on this path for a little while, that's the blessing.
Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah, a couple things to that. I think it's really important, right? So I've learned being, a person who's practiced with ayahuasca and um in my own way, I'm
Right.
not a shaman, I'm not an indigenous person. I'm just was lucky enough that someone opened up my eyes to something. That's really as simple as that. Um,
Absolutely.
so there is a distinction there, right? So yeah, I do talk about set the intention, but let go of the expectation of how you or me or anyone thinks it's how it's going to happen, what's going to happen, right? Because that is the beauty, at least in my experience, of ayahuasca. She is I mean, I can't even a masterful teacher and how she presents visions, feelings, sensations, all of that. And, um, and I think you said one other thing that I want to speak to, but I lost it, so that's okay.
And sometimes she doesn't even present the vision. Sometimes she doesn't present any of those things.
Right.
Sometimes she just presents an uncomfortable experience.
Oh,
But,
yeah.
you know, everything means something at the end of the day. And I think
Right.
dosage, something we need to want to talk about is
Right.
dosage because dosage becomes an important factor. We talked a little bit about this before, but why don't you
Right.
go ahead with dosage
Yeah.
and what it all does?
Well, then now I just remember what you were talking about, which is
Sure,
so
go ahead.
like a lot of people, right, so there is fear with ayahuasca, and rightfully so. I do
Sure.
think a little bit of anxiety is wisdom,
Hmm.
and so I do think that's where, um, the dosage part can come in to really help ease that anxiety, and I've talked to so I'll share a little bit. So the reason why I got so, like, hot on this or my soapbox now is because I actually had an experience in Peru, um, where my dose was way too high and the setting was chaotic, and, I didn't end up getting the assistance that I deeply needed. And I had, 30 experiences with ayahuasca before going to the jungle, and that one experience, although it was very painful, I mean, like, ungodly painful, but I feel like the pieces are definitely put back together now, and I think, like, I have what they call post-traumatic growth now after almost 2 years of that happening, but what I deeply learned was that, um, that dosage factor really matters, and that when we're in foreign or unknown environments, we really gotta take it slow because there's so I mean, right, there's so much unpredictability in ayahuasca alone. And if you're traveling to another country and you're with strangers, that's more novelty, that's more unknown. And so we do want to do everything we can to make the nervous system feel safe. Because once I'm panicked, once you're panicked, once any of us are panicked in a high state, meaning I'm high on ayahuasca, it's not good. It's not
Yeah,
good. So there's very low level chance that I'm going to be able to regulate myself back to the moment. So when we talk about dosage, and I teach people to titrate, which means go slow. So the difference is, I'll just put it in mushroom land for a second because
sure.
ayahuasca is like liquid, and so instead of taking 5 grams up front of mushrooms, I'll start off with maybe a half a gram, then a half more, and then maybe 1 more gram as I start to feel safe in my nervous system. And so the analogy around this is like if I'm an athlete, going on another analogy for a second. If I'm an athlete, um, even if I'm not a beginner, I wouldn't walk into the gym and go under the squat rack and start off with 200 pounds. I would warm up to the experience and build my capacity, and then once I'm in that flow, I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I'm at capacity, I can take more." And it's really about giving the participant the choice to and it's real that's the main word there, a choice. That I can keep taking more in a way that feels comfortable to my nervous system rather than taking 70 milliliters, which would definitely be a therapeutic dose for some people, not all. We can't really get into too many specifics because everyone's height
We
and
can.
weight and yeah.
Right.
But but so instead of front loading that dose and then like right, it comes on really strong. And then the rooms, like if we don't know what the room's gonna be like that night, we don't know what the music is gonna be like that night. If we don't know the facilitators, we don't know how they're holding the space. So with the titration, it gives me the ability to be like, do I want to go deeper in myself? Am I ready? And in this environment, So um once again, empowering the participant and also respecting the nervous system. 'Cause this is the like, the ayahuasca experience is it's large, it's
Yeah,
big, you know?
yeah. It is, and it is all about the nervous system. Even when you come and talk about psilocybin, ayahuasca, iboga, 5-MeO, all these are about your nervous system. So
Yeah.
when we talk about, I wouldn't say 5-MeO so much, but when we talk about
Right, right, right.
when we talk about like psilocybin and ayahuasca, ayahuasca also there always tends to be second cups, third cups, so on and so forth. Because when we can do that, the ayahuasca seems when you add ayahuasca on top of ayahuasca, your experience will just be a little better,
Right.
bigger, bigger.
Yep.
Psilocybin's a little different. If you do a second cup during psilocybin, it's kind of already in you, so you're going to probably have to do more. But I totally understand that whole concept there. Psilocybin, I would probably do a little differently, but ayahuasca with a newcomer, I totally understand. I think that's a really perfect way to do it, actually,
Yeah.
that titrating because nobody's fearing, and now you're used to the medicine, and now you're understanding.
Mhm,
Especially those
mhm.
first jolts of ayahuasca can be pretty different, pretty
Yeah.
different.
And I
So,
think I think the other point too is like every batch of ayahuasca is different.
every
So
brew and
yes.
every person that mixes it, like if we
Yes.
go to, say, we go to Peru or Brazil or
Right.
you know And when we're in these ceremonies, these shaman or pages, they're looking at us with intention, and this is what they're going to give us.
Right.
I don't think there's no telling them no or yes. And
Mhm,
it's really
mhm.
difficult in those moments.
Right, right,
How do you navigate
right.
that one?
Right, that's and so this is right, like, woo-wee, like, don't even get me started, Mark.
Yeah,
So this is what I really teach my students to really have their own voice and once again, have the conversation way before we're sitting at the altar together. These
gotcha.
conversations have already happened. So
Hmm.
we after what happened to me in Peru, I sought out, I found a trauma-informed ayahuasca facilitator, and I met with them one-on-one several times to, heal, because when you have a traumatizing experience in a non-ordinary state, you can
Right.
heal it in the 3D reality, but at some point, you're gonna also have to heal it in the non-ordinary state. So I told them like, "Hey, I need to go slow in my dose. Can you do that? Please do not pressure me into taking more. That's not gonna work for me." And I'm not blaming anyone, I'm not judging, I'm not shaming, but this right here does happen in the ayahuasca community, that facilitators are like, "Do you wanna get what you came here for? Let's go." And
Yeah,
it's
right.
this very masculine energy of, like, pushing, which sometimes it just depends, but honestly, we have to honor that everyone has their own inner healer. And so as the facilitator, they gotta trust that because that's what
Yeah.
they're there for is to wake up to their own power, not
No,
the
I really
power,
like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that. I like how you did that and put that because you can go talk when you're at these ceremonies. Don't be afraid. When you can go
Yes.
when you're in Brazil and Peru or outside of your realm, you can go talk to these facilitators or the shaman or the page, and they will definitely honor what you're asking them
Right.
more so than the American tradition. That's for
Right, right.
sure.
Right,
Like
right.
you just said, do it. That's your ego.
Yeah, yeah,
Well, it's
yeah.
really not your
Right.
ego.
There you
You
go.
know,
Yes. Yes, 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 and I think, since I've
it's
been out
you trying to speak up and
exactly, so I can keep doing it, so I want to
right.
come back, so I can stay
Mhm.
on the path,
Right, for sure.
and, since I've been outspoken about what happened to me in Peru, which by the way, there was also many positive experiences that happened in Peru too, but I'm very outspoken about what happened. I've had people reach out to me and be like, man, that happened to me too. Like I was in a position where and so it's that subtle power differential that we
Mhm.
really need to be conscious of because beginners who've come to this path, um, they said like, "Hey, my facilitator um talked with the spirit guides and they said, "This is how much that I need." And I'm like, "Man, like, um, that's risky. That's a lot of, like, you're basically saying that you know that person's nervous system better than they do." And that's like, "Whoa!" Like, so I think, we really just, yeah, my whole thing is safety, so
Yeah,
I can actually transform and move through the energies that want to move towards wholeness and completion in a way that actually, my nervous system can expand into softly and slowly rather than being forced into it, right? So that's what they call re-traumatization, is like if we're just overriding different parts of us that are like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa," it's detrimental even to the integration afterwards, you
right.
know?
I think you're
So
gonna know when you want to. I mean, I think you're gonna
right.
know when you really want that blast off, when you're like, "I'm ready.
Right.
Let's get there. Let's
Right.
do this." So
You
you're
can
gonna
trust
kinda
it.
know that, yeah, and
Yeah,
trust it.
that's
Because,
right.
like, I think we spoke a little bit before this conversation about how when, like, we've been on this path for a little while, like we have, that we don't need this much medicine. Even that much medicine kind of like doesn't do us justice. I don't even see the reason for a lot of
Sure.
medicines in any of these cases, you know? I
Right.
mean, I mean, you can only get so much, and after a while, it's
Right.
just so much, you know?
Right. Right.
So,
Absolutely.
I love the second cups idea. I love like you do 3 hours in, 3 hours
Yes.
in, three. It's just a great way to do it because I don't know. This is all about clearing your system. You
Right.
got to
Right.
clear it
Yeah.
first, open it up,
Yeah. Right.
and then go.
Yeah.
So,
I don't know if I mentioned, the measuring cups thing yet, but bring your
sure,
measuring
go. I
cups.
would like to
I
see this.
I always I always tell, yeah, so, like, just you can get these on Amazon, milliliter measuring cups, and that way you know exactly how much you're taking. Because sometimes when you go to the jungle, there's no measuring cup sometimes. They just got a little
There
brown
isn't.
cup,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
because they've been doing it for millennia. They don't need
forever.
measuring cups,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
in their DNA. This is their life,
yeah.
But for us,
It's different.
Westerners, it's very different. It's a whole new
Hmm.
world. It's a
Yeah.
whole different thing, yeah.
I've never seen a measuring cup in a ceremony, so that would be pretty cool.
Yeah,
I like
yeah,
the idea. I like
yeah.
the idea, you
I'm
know?
I'm gl I'm
And
glad it I'm glad it's something that you're curious about.
yeah, I learned something new too in this last experience about, the
Mm.
taste, how everybody's a
Mm.
taste. Oh my God, I can't get enough.
Right, right.
Oranges.
Oh,
Oranges is
yes.
before or after. It is like mine,
Right.
it doesn't even matter anymore. It's like, okay, let me bite that orange, let me swallow it and bite it again. You can't even
That's right,
taste it.
that's right.
It's so good. So good.
I love
Yeah.
that because 'cause
Yeah.
you're, like, feeling into like, you're kinda like, right, I like to, um you're figuring out your ceremony accoutrement, like, what feels good to me, like, what works for me, like, so a nice orange after my cup makes me feel like, "Oh, that's wasn't that bad, like, I can do this," like,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
you know?
I just
Yeah, so
go ahead.
yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, so once again, going back to, like, being a picky participant, I just wanted to share, like, how I've integrated that, which, the best setting for me personally is either one-on-one with someone I have a really deep relationship with. And I'll just speak to that really quick because I don't think this is talked about enough, because ayahuasca is traditionally done in group settings, um, that there's such beautiful counter transference. This is like therapy word, by the way. Counter transference that happens between you and the facilitator. So your facilitator, in a one-on-one setting, like, right, you have the opportunity for a lot of healthy projection. Like that facilitator can become your mom, your dad. You go into regressions where you feel like you're finally taken care of. Um, and who doesn't want private space to be held for them for 8 hours? Like, how often is it that we feel held as we're being rebirthed? Literally, like that's what I think these experiences are. We're being rebirthed. And so I just feel like there's so much value in that. So I really that's kinda what I like, and also in the daytime. I
Oh
love
yeah,
ayahuasca ceremonies
I
in the
think so
daytime, it's my
too.
favorite.
I think, I never, my most powerful have been in the daytime. And
Right.
kind of like psilocybin. I mean, psilocybin we always serve in the day. We have morning till I don't know. I just think psilocybin's a little scarier at night for some reason. It's a little darker.
Sure.
Let's drink it in the
I
day. Let's get
understand.
this over with. Let's
Yeah.
get some healing done. So, but I
Yeah, yeah,
totally agree. Daytime ceremonies are way underrated.
yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't have science or research articles on it, but I honestly think it has a lot to do with the nervous system, because when we're drinking at 9, 10, I've drinking as late as 1 a.m.,
Yeah,
a few times in my life. Our bodies are tired.
yeah,
They're tired,
yeah.
and, our nervous systems are depleted, and ayahuasca is a lot of work.
Right.
It's not easy. It's like, so I'm like,
And think about
so
like this. Think about how we do this medicine too. We punish ourselves sometimes, and that's like these last week. It's like 3 days in a row. You're going Monday, you're going Friday,
Oh
waking
my
up Friday. You're
gosh.
getting no sleep because ayahuasca. You don't sleep. You think you
Right.
sleep, then you're going Saturday, doing it again. Then you're getting on the plane Sunday to go home. Then most people are going to work. It's like, are you kidding
Yep,
me? What are you
I
doing?
know.
Are
You're
you
speaking my
kidding?
sauce.
So yeah,
That's right.
but I agree with you a lot with this. I think, there has to be a little break in between, like 7 days. I like the 7 day ones because you can rest the day before, then you get some rest, and you're ready, then you get some more rest. I think
Right.
rest is important, but we're being
Absolutely.
pounded, pounded, pounded with these medicines in a 3 day time span. Nothing's wrong with it. I've done it so many times and I've got the best out of it. But the more I vision this for the Western world, is like week longs, maybe week longs, and
Right, right.
put something in between and teach them things and
Yeah.
modalities they don't know, and breathing that we
Right,
lost how
right,
to breathe because we don't know how to breathe
right.
anymore. So just all these cool things.
Integration.
Integration, I mean, that's the biggest part of all this because we all talk, and we even talked about it in the beginning. Everybody says, oh, ayahuasca is like 20 years of therapy. Yeah, it can be this way. It can be,
Right,
but you gotta do the
right,
work. I mean, and the work is just working
right.
on yourself at the end of the day. It's just you. This is a very this is a very selfish individual path, no matter what anybody says. And I'm not saying selfish like, oh, me, 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 this is me. It's just
Right,
a very
right,
selfish path. It's a
right.
very, if you're not setting fucking boundaries,
There you go.
you're
There you
going
go.
to really
That's
hurt
it.
your path.
Right. That's what I interpret what you said is
Hmm.
like, putting yourself first, and having those boundaries
Yeah,
and like,
boundaries.
yeah, taking care of yourself. Yeah, some of my favorite integration practices, which have been inspired a lot of what I did way before ayahuasca, so I had practice. I was in EMDR therapy. I still am, by the way. I love EMDR. Um, it works for everything, by the way, and, at least in my opinion, and I was in 12 step, still follow that program, breath work, somatic experiencing. I'm just about to start getting, trained in holotropic breath work, and, yeah, I think, like, once again, going back to that inner guiding healer, like, everyone has to find what works for them, and I really think it goes back to whatever that person's intention is for whatever their personal vision is for their own life, right? And then that can kinda help, like, well, what integration modalities are gonna help me arrive to whatever I desire? That sounds really linear, by the way, and I understand that. I know it's more like the stock market rather than a
Right,
straight line up.
right.
But, yeah, evolution, it does take time, but yeah,
It does
I
take
think
time.
yeah, it's not
Because
just the
look at most of these people that are coming to these medicines. If you really
right,
look at the age group, I mean, it is the 35 to 60. I mean, that's like
right,
the really, maybe even a little older than that 30, but it's really in
sure.
between there that's coming to these medicines. So, I think we're really searching for something. Well, I don't think we are. I mean, we're changing our shift. We're shifting, you know, we all know other forms of healing don't work. You know, what it would be like to go to a therapist after 5 years of going to the same therapist after a psilocybin journey or an ayahuasca journey and talk about things that really are going to fucking change, that
Right, right,
really are going
right,
to
right, right,
change your
right,
life. You know, I mean,
right.
we're doing this is silly nonsense. I mean,
Sure.
4 years going to the same therapist, you're talking about the same
Mm,
things, but you could sit with some of these medicines, and that's what we're talking, how you could shift
right.
because they open you up. They open you up and you're
Absolutely.
clear and you're aware. And we
Yeah.
need things like this today. We need education, information, and integration, and that's all we need.
That's right. That's right.
We've been slapped in the head with the stigma of these medicines are gonna you're gonna jump off roofs, you're gonna die. Especially when it comes
Right,
to
right.
psilocybin. Nobody's
Sure.
ever died from psilocybin. Ever.
Right,
Think of
right.
millions of
Sure.
years. Nobody. So
Absolutely.
we're doing it, my friend. We're
That's
informing
right.
people and
That's right.
yeah,
That's right. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I think
So
I think you make a
go ahead.
good point with, well, I think, the right, so you or me or anyone, although I do believe talking about something is good for a period of time, especially if someone is just coming out of hiding from themselves, it can
Sure.
be just even that process like, whoa, like I'm waking up and I gotta tell somebody about it.
Sure.
Um,
Don't you remember telling the person at Publix or the grocery store this? I just did ayahuasca.
right,
You know,
right,
I
right,
remember
right.
those times, the
Yes,
first few
yes.
years. Yeah, but now you get a little bit more, I'm not going to tell that, but I
Right,
get
right.
it.
Totally.
Yeah,
Yeah, we do have to be mindful of who we tell.
yeah,
And yeah, so I think kind of what you were saying is like at some point, like even scientifically, talking can really, it's shown it can only get us so far because um it's still staying in the default mode network. And then when we start doing these other practices that are more mind body connected, I'm now including my nervous system and embodiment. I'm working on actually embodying like a reorganization of my parts of my nervous system. Um, because I think Western psychology has been all about the mind for so long, and finally we're
so
realizing
long.
it's the whole thing.
It
It's the
is
whole we got a
so
whole
much,
data down here.
so
Um,
much.
so yeah, that's why me and of course everyone else who's really deep in this work, mindfulness, breath work, internal family systems, parts work, EMDR, somatic experiencing. These are the things that can really support an expanded state and integrating it or preparing for it, the full transformation continuum. So, yeah, I mean, we're in a very exciting time. I feel like
We sure are,
there's no lack of information. There's so
there
much
isn't.
information
You know
and,
what there's a lack of right now? There's a lack
mm,
of foundation.
sure.
There's a lack of foundation in this space. I see it creating and creating, and people are getting smart, and
Yeah,
foundation meaning accountants, lawyers,
right.
brick and mortars, things that are really
Sure.
making the Western world say, okay,
Yeah.
that's the real deal. That's the real
Right,
deal.
right, 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 right.
Mhm.
Integrating it into the
Yeah,
collective.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, you said something just a little bit ago about like what Joe Dispenza would say about,
Um,
I didn't say this, about that wiring and firing and how
yes, yes.
you just you said something, I just forgot, but we'll probably edit this part
I
out
know what
because
you're
I'm not gonna
saying
say
though.
no.
I like,
Yeah,
I like Joe Dispenza, and you're right. Like in order to become a new version of yourself, you gotta engage in that future self, and that's hard sometimes. I understand that. We have like that those can be that can easily reveal our stuck points and where
yeah,
our opportunities are. So if I really want and I desire to feel safe and confident and follow my purpose, but I feel like I'm not worthy, or parts of me feel like they're unworthy, or I just feel I procrastinate when I go for it. You know, not talking about anyone in particular, but I'm talking about myself, and I think a lot
I
of
get you.
people who go follow their purpose, it's like, "Oh, this is my learning edge right now, and I have the tools to work with it." Rather than like, "I'm going to stay stuck in this and I feel powerless," you know?
But most people, most of society likes to stay stuck in that misery because what else do they have, you know? I mean,
Sure,
that's a comfortable spot for a lot of people. It was comfortable for me
right.
for so long,
Sure,
you know?
sure.
Yeah. What was uncomfortable is today, like 3 years ago today, this was
Wow.
uncomfortable, this.
Sure.
The real deal. Because I think we all are the same person no matter what, because we just get broken along the way because it's all childhood. Like you say, everything is childhood. Everything is
Yeah,
3, 7, 8, 12, 13, 17, 20.
right.
Something happened at all those ages where you stopped and you didn't heal or do nothing about that. And then you just went to the next level. And then
Right.
so you have to go back to those areas. And inner child work is probably
That's
the
right.
most important part of all this. It
I
really
totally
is.
agree.
You got to tear that shit out. And another thing you said that's so important is above the neck, don't even listen to it. Okay.
Right, right,
Listen
right,
to below the neck, because
right.
below the neck is where it all's at. Below the neck is how you've established who you are over
Sure.
these past so many years. This is just thoughts. This is crazy
Right,
thoughts,
right,
nutty, but we're not taught that. We're taught this is everything.
right, right. Yeah,
It's
I
only
think,
evolved as big as it is only the last 5,000 years. I mean, because
right,
we ate mushrooms, we ate
right,
the
right,
plants, and our brain expanded, and nobody wants to talk about that.
right, totally.
Hmm.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I love what you said about the inner child work. I mean, I did a lot of that work before I ever took ayahuasca, and honestly, like, thank God, because I would have been really, you know, it would have been a little too much, I think. But I think the inner relationship, the way we relate to ourselves, right?
Right,
Because a lot of that programming is running subconsciously, automatically, and a lot of them are tapes from our first caregivers, or our trauma by commission or omission, emotional neglect, abuse. And so
and
we
you
really
even
have the
forgot about,
opportunity.
though.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Things you even forget, and you're like,
Yes.
these experiences make you remember.
Ab Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, um, even the womb. I mean, I relived my birth in one of my ayahuasca ceremonies, like a lot of people do, and at first I was like, "What was that?" I was like,
Mm.
"What's going on here?" And I had to call my dad and be like, "Okay, you wanna tell me, like, what happened?" And I finally got the story about my own birth, which was very chaotic, and I was like, "Wow, that explains a lot, a lot," you know?
Why do you
Um,
think so many men are sexually traumatized? I mean, they're
totally,
getting their membranes cut at the age of what, 6 months old? They're getting
totally,
circumcised. And
totally.
we don't talk
Oh,
about that.
you're right.
I mean, that is trauma. Are you kidding
You're
me?
right. You are
Yeah.
so right.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah.
like, not okay, you know?
Not
Yeah.
okay. But we still do it. We still don't talk about it because it's not something, I don't know. We just make things so weird to talk about that should be talked
Yeah,
about. Hmm.
absolutely. That's a really
Yeah.
good point, because
Hmm.
the powerlessness and the not no choice, right? So, I don't have a
No
choice in what
choice.
just happened. Yeah.
Yeah. Pretty cool, huh? Pretty
Yeah.
interesting that you can go back that far and get that trauma.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Yes. Mhm.
And then you're embedded with it because I think by about 4 or 5 years old, you really become you.
Yeah,
So
totally.
after that, I think it's kind of game on to who you don't want to be. So,
Sure.
but it
Yeah,
was
and I
really
think
great
I think
talking to
all
you.
the absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah, go
thank
ahead.
you,
What were you
Mark.
gonna say?
I was
Say it.
gonna say, there's although I mean although these traumas are, like, really painful, like, right? Trauma can lead any of us, including myself, to patterns that paralyze us, make us
Mhm.
addicted. Um, but I really do believe that we are in a time where we have the tools and, I think access to those tools, we all can work on that a little bit more, but, like, the science is there to give a
Science is there.
lot of hope, you know?
When
Yeah.
everybody's in stage 3 right now, all of them. I mean, they're all in stage 3s. They're all in clinical
Right.
trial stage 3s. I mean,
Right,
what else
right,
could
right,
you net
right,
from that one
right,
negative thing out of any of them? So,
right.
we all know what's happening. We all know it's there. They're just waste. Really, the sickest part about all this. So, the
Totally.
drugs they're manufacturing, drugs that if people only knew, you know,
Right,
and that's what we're trying to do, my friend.
right.
With things like you, people like you coming on talking, we need this
Yeah.
information out there. My monkey's still here because my mind
Yeah,
doesn't do
that's right, that's right. Yeah,
that.
so Mark is gonna leave a link for somewhere around here for the ayahuasca preparation course, so people can
Yep.
access that for completely free. I go over setting, and dosage in there. It's 3 hours of content, has gotten tons of great reviews, and, um, I'm just happy to give this information away because think it's really important for, harm
Absolutely.
reduction and safety. So I hope you enjoy it. A lot of people
Yeah,
have
and
gotten a
we
lot
will
out of
post
it,
it out
so
when this goes live. We're going to get it out there, and people can, people need this information. The more information, the better. They can grab it and they can do whatever they want to do with it. Right, my friend?
exactly, that's right. Mhm.
Aho. Have a great day.
Uh-huh. Yeah, you too.
Nice talking to you.
Thanks,
We'll talk
guys.
soon. Ciao,
Bye.
ciao.